Jy kyk en luister na die groot ontbyt en Stefano Marani van RENERGEN kuier vanoggend saam om te gesels oor hoe hulle COVID-19-entstowwe tydens vervoer ijskoud hou met die gebruik van helium en ander natuurlike gasse. So good morning Stefano and thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, thank you to you and your listeners.
Stefano, why helium over dry ice or liquid nitrogen?
Very simply put, when helium is in liquid state, it's minus 269 degrees Celsius versus nitrogen, which is minus 195, and dry ice, which is minus 120. But without going into all the exact thermodynamics, the long and the short of it is that helium can stay colder at that temperature for much longer. So if you had to go and put helium inside this case that we've invented, you would be able to keep the vaccines that cold for 30 days, as opposed to nitrogen, which would be about 4 days.
And what else?
And dry ice, obviously, even shorter.
Yes, of course. What else is helium used for?
It's actually a really cool, pardon the terrible pun, but it's actually a really cool element. So it's obviously other than hydrogen, it's the lightest element on Earth, which unfortunately also means that it just escapes the atmosphere every time you've used it. So it's very, very rare. Mm-hmm. But you use it for things like MRIs, you use it for things like the manufacture of cell phones. This call, for instance, wouldn't be possible without helium. Laptops, TVs, then rocket launchers, all sorts of things like that. So a cute fact, Falcon 9 wouldn't have launched unless it had the equivalent of 2 million helium balloons helping its liftoff. So it's got a lot of uses.
And where is the helium that you use from?
So we've got a deposit in the Free State covering the towns of Welkom, Virginia, and Tennyson. We've got about 187,000 hectares of production right that we drill for natural gas and for helium. And our helium is in that part of the world thanks to the Vredefort asteroid, which hit about 2 billion years ago. So in a way, we're kind of mining an asteroid right here in the Free State, which is pretty cool.
Stefano, you're here, the other presenter. I just want to find out, you use helium, but it's constructed by aluminium. So, the invention, what is it exactly and what was needed to be patented?
So the way that most cryogenic liquids work is that you use the liquid as a bath. So, for instance, you would have a liquid nitrogen, for instance, and you would keep things in the liquid nitrogen, and then the liquid nitrogen boils. The problem with this vaccine is that you don't want to put the vaccine directly into contact with something that's minus 195, or in helium's case, minus 269. So what we invented was a way to keep a little reservoir of helium at the bottom of this case in a protected, insulated bin. And the helium then boils, and when the helium reaches minus 70, it's then allowed to go through a kind of a heat exchanger inside the case. And that's what keeps the vaccine at the right temperature. And that, I've oversimplified it. It's a little bit more complicated than that. But that's a new way, literally, of keeping things at the right temperature using a cryogenic liquid.
And the process, how long did this take from the start for development?
We've been playing with various ideas now. Yeah, in the interest of full transparency, we're also specialists at cryogenics. We produce two substances. The one substance is LNG, or liquid natural gas, and that we take down to minus 162 Celsius. And the other thing is liquid helium, which we take down to minus 269. And we've got to come up with all sorts of innovative ways of keeping this stuff cold when we move it to our customers. And in particular, the helium, we've got to move for 45 days to our customers at that temperature. So we're kind of adept at using ultra low temperature insulation. And we had the skills, we had the know-how. It took us a few weeks to throw the concept around until it got to the point where we felt we had something that we can now put into a prototype and patent. And so the patent process was exceedingly quick. That was only a few days. The designs obviously took a little bit longer.
Stefano, is helium expensive?
Yes, that it is. It is exceedingly expensive. Right now, there is a massive global crisis. There's a huge gap between supply and demand, and that's because some of the world's biggest helium suppliers have gone offline. In particular, and this is a story you can't actually make up. It's worth looking up on Wikipedia. There's a thing called the Helium Reserve in the United States. It was built by the Secretary of Defense in just after World War I because they found that the majority of the helium was in the United States. And they built this huge reserve in Amarillo in Texas that they just started feeding helium down. World War II came along. They realized that they couldn't manufacture nuclear weapons without helium. And so they started throwing more helium into this hole. And then it got to the point where the Fed wanted its money back. So the Fed forced the helium reserve to start selling off this helium. MRIs got invented. More helium was being bought than was being created. And there was a shock in 2018 when the U.S. government announced that it ran out of helium in the reserve 5 years ahead of schedule. So now everyone's kind of scrambling around trying to find new helium sources quite desperately. But, the application that we're looking to use this in, to my mind, instead of party balloons, I think this is probably a much better case. And so there's sufficient helium to be able to use a product like this. And I think we can all agree that we can all sacrifice a few party balloons for the sake of getting the vaccine moved around.
It is a little bit concerning, I have to agree. Are there any other challenges that you can point out at this stage regarding the process in terms of the process within this regard?
Yeah, so look, what we've done is that we've invented this case, and we're now looking for partners who are willing to go out in large scale manufacture. We're not manufacturers; we're gas drillers. So we'll leave it to the experts to manufacture the cases. The other part of this entire problem or riddle that needs to be solved is the fact that 44% of the entire planet lives in rural areas. And if you're going to use the traditional methods that the big pharma companies are using at the moment, you've only got 4 days to get your payload anywhere useful, which is what prompted us to invent this case, because now you go from 4 days to 30 days. But to my mind, the biggest concern is that until people actually start deciding which vaccine they're going to go with, are they going to go with the higher temperature AstraZeneca type vaccine, or are they going to use mRNA type vaccines, which need -50 to -80? Governments need to decide which way they're going to go and then actually start ordering these vaccines. And then people are going to need to start engaging with logistics companies. I don't see the vaccines being rolled out in Africa in any meaningful way in 2021. I see this as a 3 to 5 year process.
Yes.
I don't think anyone has truly appreciated the logistical challenge that this planet is about to embark on.
Stefano, thank you so much. Good luck with everything, and thank you so much for your time. En dit was dan Stefano Marani van RENERGEN.